My sister spit on my son's cake out of jealousy, so I played the footage right before everyone took a bite. What happened next was beautiful. The day had started exactly how I hoped. Streamers curled from the ceiling, balloons in blue and gold bobbed near the windows, and the soft murmur of family voices filled the house. My son, Tyler, had just turned 6. It was his first real birthday party, not just a cake and presents kind of afternoon, but a full celebration. The living room was crowded with cousins, uncles, and old family friends, most of whom hadn't visited in years. Tyler had picked out his own cake this time, vanilla with chocolate layers, topped with a toy dinosaur that made sounds when pressed. He'd been talking about it for weeks. The guests mingled, laughter bouncing off the walls, but I could already feel her mood before I saw her face. My sister, Miranda, stood by the corner of the room, arms crossed despite the warm buzz of celebration. I knew that look. I'd seen it every time someone else had the spotlight. Weddings, baby showers, even graduations that weren't hers. She always found a way to stain the joy. Still, I pretended not to notice. I had other things to focus on, gifts to arrange, plates to set, drinks to hand out. As I moved between the kitchen and living room, checking that everything was running smoothly, I kept my eye on Tyler. He wore his favorite red t-shirt and was grinning ear to ear, running between his cousins and dragging around a plastic dinosaur like it was treasure. Everything was going well, better than well, but I'd learned after the last holiday gathering not to trust the surface of things. 2 months ago, she accidentally knocked over Tyler's school project at Thanksgiving, the one he spent 3 days building, and claimed it was just clumsiness. Then she laughed when he cried. That night, I installed a discreet camera on the wall near the fireplace, just in case. This time, it caught everything. I was in the kitchen when it happened, maybe for 4 or 5 minutes at most, grabbing the knife for the first slice. I didn't hear any commotion, no giggles, no suspicious silence. But later, when I checked the footage just to be sure, there she was. Miranda, glancing around, leaning over the cake like she was admiring it. Then, without hesitation, she hawked and spit right onto the frosting, then smoothed it over with her finger like nothing had happened. She did it so casually, as if it was her right, as if ruining Tyler's cake was just part of her day. I didn't react. I didn't barge out and yell. Instead, I walked out of the kitchen holding the knife and matches, smiling as if nothing was wrong. She stood dead center near the table, leading the applause as the cake was carried in. She even laughed and clapped louder than anyone else, trying to look supportive. But I knew what she'd done, and what she didn't know was that the TV above the mantel was already cued. The remote was in my back pocket. All I had to do was press play. I waited until everyone gathered around. Tyler sat in his chair, eyes wide, cheeks flushed with excitement. Just before the cake cutting, I stepped forward. "Before we eat," I said, raising my voice just enough to hush the room, "I thought it'd be nice to share a little memory from today. Something caught on camera. Just a moment that says a lot." I pulled the remote from my pocket and pressed play. At first, no one knew what they were seeing. A live shot from earlier in the day, showing the cake sitting on the table, untouched. Then Miranda entered the frame. A few guests leaned in. She leaned over the cake. Someone near the TV squinted. Then the moment played in full. Her lips curled, her head dipped, and the unmistakable act happened. Clear, disgusting, deliberate. Gasps rang out. Plates in midair hung frozen. Someone muttered, "Oh my God," under their breath. My aunt dropped her fork. Miranda's face drained of color. Her hands dropped to her sides. Her mouth moved, but no words came out. Tyler looked up at me, puzzled. I smiled down at him and gently patted his shoulder. "Don't worry, buddy," I said, loud enough for the room to hear. "That one's not your cake." I turned back toward the kitchen, opened the side door, and wheeled out the real cake. The backup I'd kept chilled in the pantry fridge. Same design. No spat. This one hadn't been touched by anyone but me and the baker. The room broke into applause. Honest, warm, collective. One uncle even started laughing, the kind of laugh you can't stop once it starts. Miranda took a step back, eyes flicking around, looking for someone to defend her. No one moved. No one spoke to her. I carried the new cake to the table and about to cut it. Everyone was excited and louder this time. The ruined cake? I picked it up with both hands, walked to the trash bin, and dropped it in without a word. Her face was still frozen when I turned around. Pale, unmoving, a statue surrounded by people who now saw her for what she really was. She didn't say a word the rest of the party. She didn't even stay for the gifts. By the time the last balloon lost its lift, she was gone. I didn't need to defend my son with words. I let the footage speak, and it said everything. The party wrapped up around 5 in the evening. The living room, once filled with voices and camera flashes, now sat quiet with only scattered wrapping paper and empty plates left behind. Tyler had fallen asleep in the den, curled up with his new dinosaur plush, still smiling even in his dreams. I closed the fridge, having placed the leftover slices of the backup cake into containers, and turned to the window. The sun was dipping low, golden light slanting across the yard. Then came the buzz on my phone. Miranda. Are you proud of yourself? No name. Nobody think. Just that. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I walked away from my phone, picked up Tyler's jacket, and hung it on the hook by the door. But I knew she wouldn't stop there. And I was right. 10 minutes later, my mother called. She rarely got involved in anything, a quiet woman who believed family business should stay private, which usually meant she ignored it until it blew over. But this time, her voice held weight. She says you humiliated her, she began. In front of everyone. I leaned on the counter, letting her speak. And what did she say about what she did? I asked plainly. A pause. She said it wasn't what it looked like. I let out a dry breath. Not quite a laugh. More like the sound of disbelief you give when something's so ridiculous it leaves no room for real emotion. So she bent over a cake and added her saliva for decoration? That's her story now. Another silence from the line. She didn't defend her. She didn't agree with me either. She just said, this family's going to fall apart if things keep going like this. I ended the call without replying. The next day, Miranda started damage control. She posted a long status online, vague enough to keep plausible deniability, but pointed enough that anyone who was at the party knew exactly what she was referring to. She used words like betrayal, twisted revenge, and fake family. She said nothing about the cake, nothing about the footage. She made herself sound like the victim of some grand scheme. But the damage was already done. I didn't comment. I didn't respond. I didn't message anyone asking for support. I let the silence speak for itself. People noticed. One by one, the relatives who had come to the party either messaged me privately to say how sorry they were or stopped engaging with her posts altogether. She noticed that too, and when the silence became unbearable, she called me. Not to apologize. She wanted to meet. She chose a cafe on the edge of town, the kind with chalkboard menus and indie music playing too softly to be relevant. She was already there when I arrived, sitting with a tea in front of her and her sunglasses perched on top of her head like she was trying to look unfazed. I know you're mad, she started as I sat across from her. But what you did, that was cruel. I didn't answer right away. I watched her. Her posture was stiff, her nails freshly painted, her lipstick a little too red for a midday meetup. She was trying to look composed, but her eyes twitched slightly, a tell I'd known since we were teenagers. You spit on your nephew's birthday cake, Miranda, I said flatly. What did you think was going to happen? She looked away, jaw clenched. You think I did it out of hate? You think I actually meant to hurt him? You did it because you couldn't stand that it wasn't about you, that a 6-year-old was getting attention you weren't. She leaned forward then, her voice low but sharp. You've always twisted things, always made yourself look like the hero. No, I said, calm but firm. I didn't twist anything. I just pressed play. She scoffed, leaned back in the chair, and looked around the cafe like someone else might back her up. No one cared. It was just her, me, and the truth between us. You know what I think, she said after pause. I think you set me up. I think you wanted me to do something, so you'd have an excuse to embarrass me. That made me blink. Slowly. I had a camera set up. That part's true. But I didn't make you do anything. You did that all on your own. People spit all the time. It's not some huge crime. It is when it's deliberate. On food. For a child. At a party. She opened her mouth to argue again, but I raised a hand. You came here for what, Miranda? An apology? A redo? You want me to delete the video? Say I made it all up. She didn't answer. Her mouth closed slowly. Her pride wanted a fight, but her logic knew she'd already lost. She stood up, grabbed her purse, and said just before walking away, "This isn't over. You think people will forget, but they won't forget what you did either." What I did, I walked back to my car, letting her words settle. She wasn't sorry. She was embarrassed. Not about what she did, only that she got caught. Days passed, and the aftermath continued to ripple. She lost her babysitting clients, which wasn't my doing, but word got around, and no parent wants someone unpredictable near their kids. At first, she blamed me again, claimed I was spreading rumors. I didn't say a word, but every time someone asked me what happened, I simply sent the video. No editing. No comments. Just facts. One by one, people stopped asking. A week later, I got a message from our cousin Rachel. Short. Direct. She's saying you faked the video. That it was edited. You should know. I replied, ask her why she's never requested to see the original file then. Rachel didn't reply. I didn't expect her to. Miranda was spiraling. She switched from anger to denial to self-pity and back again, cycling through moods like someone trying to land on the one that would earn forgiveness quickest. But she hadn't once asked me how Tyler felt. She hadn't once checked in on her nephew. She cared more about her own image than the fact that she'd violated a child's celebration, and not just any child, but her own blood. Tyler, for his part, didn't seem shaken. He only asked once why there were 2 cakes. I told him that one of them had something bad happen to it, so we used the safe one instead. He nodded and went back to his toys. Kids don't hold on to confusion like adults do. They just need safety and honesty. But I held on to something else. Not bitterness, not revenge. Just awareness. I knew now, fully, that Miranda wasn't going to change. And if she couldn't even own up to one of the most visible things she'd ever done wrong, there was no telling how far she'd go the next time. I didn't cut her off immediately. I didn't block her. I didn't stage some dramatic confrontation. I simply stopped letting her in. When Thanksgiving rolled around, I didn't invite her. When she asked if there was anything happening, I said it was just a quiet dinner. No fanfare. No cameras this time. Just chosen peace. And slowly, without force, she began to fade from the center of the family. I watched as relatives stopped including her in group chats. I watched as her social media presence became less reactive and more desperate. Photos of fake smiles, long captions about healing and betrayal, all curated for sympathy she couldn't seem to earn back. The more she tried to look unaffected, the more obvious it became that the silence around her was the loudest thing in her life. She still hadn't apologized. Not even once. And yet she wondered why the doors were closing. The most ironic part? If she had said one genuine sentence, if she had walked up to Tyler after the party and said, "I'm sorry," instead of playing dumb, she might have salvaged something. But her pride was louder than her guilt. So I let the truth sit, not as a weapon, but as a wall she couldn't scale. And the footage? It's still there, tucked away in a folder. Not because I plan to use it again, but because when someone shows you who they are, it's best not to forget it. Tyler's next birthday is already on the calendar. He wants a space theme this time. Rockets, planets, stars. The guest list is smaller this year, and that's intentional. I've learned that not everyone who shares your blood deserves a seat at your table, especially if they once spat on the cake you made with love. 2 months passed without a single knock on my door or unexpected message from Miranda. For the first time in years, there was no tension humming under every family gathering, no passive-aggressive comments, no second-guessing whether her presence would ruin something. The air around our home had cleared. Peace had finally taken up space where her resentment used to linger. But I knew her silence wasn't a sign of change. She was quiet because she was planning. It was mid-January when her final move came. Not a surprise visit, not an apology, but a legal notice. A formal letter arrived in the mail, thick envelope, no return address. I opened it at the kitchen table, Tyler in the other room watching a cartoon with his hands sticky from a fruit snack. Inside was a printed document, a defamation claim. Miranda was threatening legal action for public humiliation, intentional character harm, and false representation. Attached was a list of guests from the party, her claims of emotional distress, and a demand for a public apology and monetary compensation. I read it twice, calm, without rushing. The absurdity of it didn't make me angry. It made something inside me finally settle. This wasn't just about the party. This was about control. She was using every tool she had left to reclaim power she thought she'd lost. But this time, I wasn't backing down, and I wasn't handling it quietly. The next day, I met with a lawyer, someone straightforward and sharp. I didn't want drama. I just wanted it shut down. I showed her the footage, explained the events clearly, and handed over every message and response Miranda had sent afterward. There was no need to add opinion. The facts were enough. Within a week, my lawyer sent a formal response to Miranda's bluff. In it, she reminded Miranda that the footage had been captured legally in a private home on a property where Miranda had no expectation of privacy, and the viewing had taken place among family, not posted publicly. There was no defamation because everything shown was accurate and unedited. We received no reply. Not an email, not a phone call, not a whisper. But the silence this time wasn't strategic. It was defeat. 3 weeks later, a mutual cousin let it slip that Miranda had moved back in with an old college friend in a different city, almost 2 hours away. She had shut down most of her social media, deleted the posts that hinted at betrayal, and apparently stopped returning calls from family. The damage was permanent, not because of what I had done, but because she had refused to take accountability when it mattered. Every chance she'd had to own her actions, she had instead doubled down, turned bitter, and tried to flip the narrative until no one believed her anymore. Tyler's birthday had become a turning point, not just in our family dynamics, but in how I handled boundaries. For too long, I had tried to keep the peace by keeping quiet. I thought by tolerating small behaviors, I was avoiding bigger blow-ups. But what I learned was that silence doesn't protect peace. It just gives problems room to grow. In February, our mother finally came to visit. She hadn't spoken much since the fallout. We sat on the porch, coffee mugs in hand, watching Tyler draw with chalk on the driveway. She cleared her throat, the way she always did when something hard was about to be said. I wish I'd done more, she admitted. I saw how she acted over the years. I just didn't want to believe it was who she really was. I know, I replied, not bitter, just tired of carrying it alone. We all gave her more chances than she deserved. She called me after the legal letter, said you were trying to ruin her life. And you believed that? No, she said. Not anymore. She didn't ask for details. She didn't press for stories. She just stayed a little longer that afternoon, and before leaving, knelt down beside Tyler and handed him a small box of art supplies. Then she turned to me and said, I'm proud of how you protected him. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. But it was the closest to a healing moment we'd had in a long time. Spring rolled in quietly. Tyler grew taller, more curious, started asking harder questions. One day, while packing up his backpack, he turned and asked, why doesn't Aunt Miranda come around anymore? I knelt next to him, tying his shoe, because she made some bad choices and she didn't want to say sorry. He looked at me, thoughtful but not sad. Is she mad at me? No, I said simply. She's just not ready to be part of this family the right way. That was enough for him. We moved forward. No drama, no gossip, just real life. Eventually, other things filled our lives. New routines, school projects, friends. Miranda's absence wasn't a hole. It was a door that had finally closed. And no one missed what used to slip through it. Over the months, I got fewer and fewer updates about her. One cousin mentioned she picked up a job in a bookstore. Someone else said she joined a local community group, trying to rebuild a different social circle. But it was always vague, distant, removed. No one visited. No one invited her back. And then one day, out of nowhere, a letter arrived in the mail. No threats. No accusations. Just a folded page, handwritten in her familiar sharp, slanted style. I won't ask you to forget what I did. I know you won't. I'm not proud of how I acted. I wanted everything to be about me, and when it wasn't, I made it ugly. What I did at that party was wrong. Not just because of what you showed everyone, but because I knew better and still did it. I can't fix what I broke. I know you don't trust me, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. Not to make things right, just to say it, because I should have said it then. There was no return address, no phone number, just a name at the bottom, Miranda. I sat with the letter in my lap for a long time, not because I didn't believe her, not because I was still angry, but because it was the first time she had taken responsibility without making it about herself. It was late. It didn't change the past, but it was honest. I didn't reply, not because I hated her, not because I wanted her to suffer, but because forgiveness doesn't always mean restoration. Some things don't go back to the way they were, they just end. Clean. Finished. That chapter was closed. Tyler's next birthday came with a space cake and a room filled with people who had earned their place. No tensión. No disruptions. Just celebration. He tore into gifts with wild excitement, chased balloons across the hallway, and fell asleep in my lap before the party even ended.